people working in security, they always absolutely understand why we do this.
Yeah.
And they very often quote like, this was my dream to build this.
There are flaws in places, and if those are exploited before they're discovered, if they're used for bad instead of good, that's where we start to run into these problems.
Things were perfectly positioned actually for protecting the ecosystem, not just your product, basically.
Well, hello everyone. We are back with another podcast with a new angle, actually, here in the corner. I think this is our first episode where we're featuring our new setup here with our new Trezor Talk sign. So for all of you who watch visually online, I hope you appreciate it because we ordered it custom just for this. We are here today with two special guests that are super relevant. I think by the time this episode comes out, we should have the Trezor Safe 7, which I'll say openly because we can edit that out otherwise. One of the biggest features on the Trezor Safe 7, which has just launched, is the new Tropic Square microchip that it contains. And we have two guests with us today from Tropic Square, our sister company. They're in the same building with us here at Trezor. Mr. Jan, are we doing first names? Let's go first names. I think that's cooler.
Yes,
we have Jan and
Safer.
Kryštof.
Yeah.
Or if you want to pronounce it in the Czech way, it's like Kryštof.
Yes.
Right? And Jan.
It wasn't safe, but
Yeah.
Good job.
If you can roll your R, you can say Kryštof.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, otherwise Jan and Kryštof, that's the American pronunciation. The CBO and CEO, that's Chief Business Officer and Chief Executive Officer of Tropic Square. So welcome to the show. Thank you both for being on. There's a lot I've wanted to hear from the two of you because I've been learning more and more about Tropic Square as time goes on, like mostly through encounters, just kind of naturally running into you guys and like having conversations. But I'm excited to hear your thoughts today on everything. But to kick us off, just to begin, I wanted to set kind of the foundation here of what open source actually is, why it's basically what does it mean and why it's important. Because I know for me, for the longest time, that was just like technical jargon to me. I was like, okay, open source, I know it's a good thing. I know it's like something a company should have, but I never understood like, why is that important? What does it actually affect? So from either of you or both of you, like how would you describe open source? Why is it important?
For me, high-level impression of open source is that it's very similar to Bitcoin in terms of like religion and belief.
Mm-hmm.
Because it unites different sorts of people from different demographics. And ultimately, for me, it's on a high level about sharing free flow of knowledge and contributing on your free time, which for me is absolutely fascinating. Some people do that, and they just sit behind a computer and they contribute to open source software or open source hardware.
The software, can you also just see all hardware components as well?
Yeah, definitely not all, but some hardware components, and that especially the one which Tropic design, and they are very important from, let's say, threat model perspective or how the customer data are processed inside the chip. So this is the important part of it. And yes, software, hardware, but then we really talking about auditability. We say it's auditable. And, open source plays a role there, but it's more like, okay, you are allowed to see what's inside.
Yeah.
And it's significantly new stuff, basically. It's not there yet, so there are no chips which you can audit. So it's important. And to the previous discussion or previous question, it's really the enablement of the innovation. That's what we already see. Like, we design the chip, do some functionality, then it gets to the hands of the first customers, and immediately we get getting feedback. Can you do this function? And maybe then have you think about it? Say, no, clearly not, because we've been focused on something and we didn't realize that for your application it may be a good idea to modify the firmware or do some changes. And this is just few let's say examples of what happened. But if you imagine this at a scale, of the global scale, and all the chips or the technology innovations, it's amazing. And one of the scale here is like also the size of the teams. Yeah. Even big companies as small teams, essentially inside which really design particular feature. But when they open it, this way bigger IDNs, way more pair of eyes who can look at it and so on.
As you can see, the code right now online. Like if I wanted to, I could go online, look at everything from Tropic Square.
Yeah.
Same as Trezor, right?
Yeah.
Because that was kind of one of the things that I thought like, oh, that's super cool. Like getting that into our device. We'll talk about the broader picture as well of the microchip itself. But I remember like scrolling through, I'm not like a programmer or anything, but I was like, oh, I can just go look at all Trezor's code and see what's there. And then same with Tropic Square, like with that now being in the new device, there's basically no point where we're shielding anything from the public. It's like anyone can look at it. And that's kind of the thing that stood out to me is like, because you say auditable, like you can have, what's the phrase? Is that is related to penetration testing, right? We have, maybe, I don't know if they do that in audits, but like pretty much anyone, not just laymen or people from the public can take a look at it, but you can hire companies to like stress test the thing and to look at every single aspect and release reports and stuff like that. And I feel like that's the thing that's always kind of missing from public perception and why that's so important. Because that was the other question I had was like, what makes the technology such a big deal? Why should people care compared to something closed source where they can't see the code? I think of things like, I don't know, a video game or something like no company will ever show you the code that makes a game, but we do show the code that makes our software and that makes, in both of our companies, yours and Trezor. So what is it that makes it such a big deal and why should people care?
I think it's personally about the access to the information. So, open source doesn't make things secure by far. However, it's the only way how to make it secure ultimately, because people, independent researchers or hackers or actually professional labs, they have access to the source code. They can verify it and they can check it, and they can check how the chip is done and made. And they will look for vulnerabilities, and only by that you can learn, because you can then iterate on the feedback. But first you need to start by being open to the feedback first, which is not the standard as it is right now.
It's tough, right? Because you exposing yourself, so maybe it's like a mental or a different mental model, and for our industry, it's not how the industry was evolved or how it's operating. Basically, there's everything hidden, and it's a big difference.
Yeah, we also use a different metaphor right these days, because we also figure out that everything started, around secrecy and hiding stuff because of intellectual property, So basically, it's not us blaming the competition or anything. We just say that we believe that this is the better alternative, basically, because it's open. And if you build everything around secrecy, then the only way it goes, it's, inside the spiral, basically. And it only ends with super micromanagement, basically you're not able to innovate at all, and because you are not able to share the information. But when you start on the other side and you start with the openness, then you get it to more people to have a look at it. You get more people to play with it, do stuff. They will give you feedback, and you can get the feedback either on security, on functionality, and or the integration, and all these stuff is just self-reinforcing spiral, basically going outward.
I feel like one of the things that makes it just hard for people to grasp is that it's not really a standard that you see in society. Like when you stop and think about it, it's mostly just new information. So I feel like it has more to do with just education and awareness more than anything, because it's almost counterintuitive. You go like, well, I'm going to show my code to everyone, but you don't think about the positive consequences of that, basically, which is like, if something happens in like closed source, so meaning you can't see the code, it's like one day you wake up and your phone has been attacked or something. You have no idea why. And maybe no one knows except the company. Like if you have an Android or if you have an iPhone, it might just be them who know, and they can choose whether or not to tell the public. I don't know what legal ramifications there are. Whereas like that thing that happened to you may have been caught in an open source world. Like someone could have found that problem first. It could have been fixed and it could have been corrected. And that's the thing that I feel like most people don't know is like when people are writing code, they make mistakes. We tend to think of programmers as like these they are obviously very intelligent and they make this digital world kind of spin for us, but there are flaws in places. And if those are exploited before they're discovered, if they're used for bad instead of good, that's where we start to run into these problems. And that's the thing that people just aren't aware of in the open source world, which right now is quite small. It's like there's not a lot out there that does it.
I think it's a brilliant point, actually. That's exactly it. Being able to face your own mistakes. I think that's why I actually believed from the beginning that that's what makes Trezor special. Because they are able to just publish something and they will, fingers crossed, and they will wait that they did the best they could, and they can just get feedback and they can get feedback on how they messed up or how did they well.
Yeah, I just think it's so much better than the idea, because now that once you learn about open source, it's like a Pandora's box. You realize what now every time I'm using something, I'm like, are these closed source companies, like what are they hiding, or like what mistakes are there that we don't know about? Stuff like
and
that.
actually why, right?
Like
and this interesting line is like between the company you mentioned, the gaming business and so on. So basically, there are the companies who just trying to protect themselves, and for them it's another layer. And protection is always about the layers. There's no single silver bullet basically which fix all the problems. So this is definitely working at some extent, and it's good for them. But what we really see, and the Satoshi Labs is really demonstrating that with Trezor and the other activities, it's really you building the products and you not want to protect yourself, you're protecting your customers. And that's the biggest difference. And that's why, the openness helps, because you just have more scrutiny and basically you will attract the best minds around the world to work on this product and make the product better, make the ecosystem safer. So that's, just click perfectly. And with the cryptography, it's actually the same thing. Like behind the cryptography, there is a math. And it's already known, that it's not a good idea to roll out your own cryptography. So this is really, the things were perfectly positioned actually for, doing the Tropic chip because of, let's say, intersection of these things. Like doing the cryptography, it's probably the easiest part which can be done open and can be open. And also, doing in the context of protecting the ecosystem, not just your product, basically.
Yeah, and that was something that I wondered about too, because I was thinking, what other context could we use open source in? Because you don't want to give away, like for example, we needed to keep the development of our new device private before, like that part wasn't open source prior to its release. So it's like, there are places where it's reasonable to withhold information, but otherwise being open source. And actually, I've just thought of this story. This is since you said the video game thing again. This tattoo that I have on my arm, I'll show this to the camera so anyone can see it. This is from a video game. It's one of my favorite games. And this game was spoiled for me because someone in the community found an exploit from the company's previous game that used the same code, and it leaked the entire thing, and it went online, and I got it spoiled for me like a year before it came out. Like major, huge spoilers for the game. And after learning about open source, it made me think like, could there have been a world where they left open the code that was okay to see, and that problem was found beforehand, and that game never got spoiled? Because this sort of thing, it's hard to think of real world examples. Like a lot of people just hear open source and they switch off. They're like, oh, I don't know what that means, and they move on. They don't think about it. But I was like, that is a place where, like, if that code had been available and someone had fixed that exploit before it happened, that whole situation, that whole consequence never would have happened. I wouldn't have got the game spoiled for me. It sounds like a silly example, but it's like, really, that's what would have happened in that case. Yeah. And it's not exactly the same analogy with like microchips, but it's obviously that sort of thing is exactly why we want to keep it open source.
Yeah. What I like about your story actually is that I think it comes back to how open source as the term was coined. It's open and source is like, I would say, at least source code, and so programmers thinking of this word were thinking in matter of code. But translating open source to regular people is another job that has not been done, I guess, yet, because really, like you said, people are ignoring this term as really like religionistic value or something. And so we always differentiate between open source as like in the technology world, so in IT, so source code, and publishing these stuff, and business, because of course at the same time we as a company, for example, we need to keep our secrets of our customers with us safe.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to, or we must not disclose that, because we would otherwise lose the trust, which is exactly the opposite, mechanism of opening up. So.
Yeah, and that kind of also made me wonder, like, who is one thing I'll admit, when I first started at Trezor, I made the typical mistake of thinking the chip was meant just for our device. And then after being here for a little bit, I was like, oh no, this is like a more widespread universal microchip. Who is the chip meant for? Like, who's your target audience? Does it work in like any device, or is it aimed at a specific market or a specific type of electronic?
It's meant for any device that's connected to the internet. And so for us, we just selected 3 top markets, hardware wallets, digital identity, and IoT, like Internet of Things. But overall, really, we are just figuring out, based on the interest that's coming to us, that it can be really basically used in any device that you need to trust. Because if you are able to verify all the way down to the silicon level and its source code, then we call it just like ultimate trust anchor. So basically, from that up, you can build the entire stack on that, and you can trust the entire device and the solutions built on top of it. You can imagine, for example, if a field of solar panels in Portugal, for example, or energy grid in Portugal will be shut off by Chinese hackers with a switch of a button, thanks to a backdoor or a hack, because it's simple to hack, then it makes sense for these industries, for example, to implement something they can trust, because you need to be able to check always when you integrate the chip or any other component into a solution.
I would say it's the chip is definitely not a Bitcoin chip. That's clear. And from the electronics perspective, it's really the horizontal solution, because it's focusing on the fundamental device identity, which you can't tamper with, you can't change, and from that you can build the ecosystem of the services and functions. And what this really does, it's not really a end user facing functionality mostly. It's really the building the resilience inside the devices. So for OEMs and electronic manufacturers, it's really the fundamental building block for making sure that if they build a device, put it on the market, it will be operated in the configuration they allow, because they can control the software updates and everything. And it's really like building the, if you had a house, back in the day it was mostly wooden, now it's maybe more brick or concrete based. So it's more resilient. Yeah. And this is something what we want to achieve, or what we enable inside the electronics, because the overall security is not at level as it should be. And also the reason is that things are changing, so the society is evolving, and basically electronics and a bunch of devices are really fundamental for our life, so we depend on them, but they evolve from these closed designs, not audited, not really understanding what they are doing. And the change was super fast from the device, which, give us some convenience. We got a calculator in the pocket, initially, and then you were able to watch the movie. Okay, so you have some pleasure time. But then you start using for payments and using more and more stuff. So there's privacy aspect to it, and there's more at stake to protect, basically. And that's here for like 10, 20 years, past 10, 20 years. So it's quite a new. And if you look at the dynamics of the industry, it's a very short period of time.
And you guys have said before, sorry, you can go ahead real quick.
Yeah, because I just remember the story actually we just heard from one of our partners. And that is that, it's kind of nicely describes where we are at and why the mission is kind of so important, is because we hear that security really doesn't care. Nobody cares about security in the industry. And it's just a standard of, for example, real product development story. So product development can go for multiple years even, but let's say, 12 months in that story was. And the guy mentioned that the security engineer had 1 week to figure out the security design for the entire product that was going on the development for 12 months, and he had to figure out in 7 days what components he will integrate and on what levels they will secure the device, right? So if this fast, imagine like you don't have time to actually care about security.
That's insane.
It is
7 days. Like, that feels like it borders on like unethical almost. Like, if you can't guarantee security for people or something like that.
Time to market.
Yeah.
No, the thing is like it's easy to mess up with the security, and a lot of the arguments is like it's too difficult, or the hard to understand the consequences, especially if everything is hidden. You don't know these details, so you just scratching on the surface, and then you put some effort, and it's very easy to kind of make it wrong anyway. So some people say, okay, why should I care? Yeah. But this is changing overall, like this, like regulation coming in, and also the I think the frequency of the issues which we see in the news, kind of forcing the people, not just the regulation, but also the realization that really the infrastructure we rely on has to be more secure. It's slowly changing.
But also, if you try to feel, put yourself in the shoes of the company, of any company these days, it's super hard to compete because the market is oversaturated, or it's very fast moving, right? And you have to innovate fast, and you have to deliver new products fast, right? And so in this ecosystem, to care about something like security, which is basically for a company adding cost, and slowing down your development, it is borderline altruistic reason, because you really need to care about the security in the end. And that's why I think that's what the entire hardware wallet industry kind of brought to the table, because those are the money that you really have to be taking care of, and those are the only money you will ever get, and you are solely sovereign for them and responsible. And if you lose them, you will lose your wealth.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? You have no insurance company to give you back your money if some hacker hacks your bank account. So I think this is very new standard and very new thing, and I think this is actually coming, and we already see it coming actually for the other industries as well, like IoT. Like for example, if you imagine autonomous robot, going around in your home, you better be sure that it behaves and it does what it should.
Yeah. That is. If you guys think of any more real world examples, definitely throw them in there, because I think that's what makes it so interesting.
You don't want to have a gray hair, so
yeah,
that's what it costs actually when you start looking at the details.
Yeah,
what we see in integrations, like examples, right? So our first customers integrated us in multiple devices, right? So hardware wallet being one. Physical access control system, so whatever you use to get into a building.
So like a chip reader or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So whatever is reading your card, Tropic is in the reader. And then also they implemented us in Edge AI boards, which is basically a little board, a PCB board on which there's a AI camera running, and Tropic chip is signing the footage. And also it ensures that the entire device boots securely, and there's no way to hijack the device, basically. So nobody can, look at your home apart from those verified and approved.
So is that, it just like it literally applies to anything. It feels like any system that could be exploited. And it feels like one of those things, like you mentioned insurance earlier, like that just like kind of sparked a comparison. It's like one of those things that no one seems to care about until there's a problem.
Until it's too late.
So they don't want to invest the time like ahead of time. But it is so important. And you guys haven't you seen, because you also said like maybe the end user isn't necessarily the first, they benefit obviously from
but they don't know. And in ideal case, they should never know, basically. It should be the responsibility of the OEM vendors and manufacturers to basically building the robust and secure.
And they do recognize the kind of the gravity of this development, right? Like you guys have said that people that you've talked to or other manufacturers, companies that you've like considered working with. I just heard someone saying that at some point, like they're like, oh my God, like this is like a big deal, basically, if we're able to implement this somehow.
But I think it only works when we translate it and we do our job properly. I mean, Tropic Square, to translate really the stories we hear and the problems we hear in the industry of the security aware people, usually people working in security. They always absolutely understand why we do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, they very often quote like, this was my dream to build this, you know, this was my dream to work with something like this.
So they get it.
They absolutely get it.
Yeah.
But the high level management doesn't get it.
Right. Like,
So
why do we need that?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's a long way before we, you know, translate it into this.
So one of the challenges then you guys have, I assume, is getting that messaging across. Like, how do we communicate this to people in a way that, you know, like what's a nice little bite-size version that they can just comprehend? Because that is difficult. I mean, we run into that. I run into that making videos for Trezor. It's like, how do I communicate this like cryptographic idea in a way that's not boring, in a way that people enjoy or at least understand very quickly? So you guys, you do encounter that, I guess, pretty regularly.
And we still struggle with
Yeah.
it.
That's a tough problem.
I tell you,
It is.
you know, openly, we still struggle. From time to time, we always just like learn a new bits, you know, where people click on which trigger. And so far, mostly they clicked on device integrity term, you know, so that's something we use. It's because people need to trust their devices. So whenever we explain that through verifiability, you are able actually to trust your device, then it makes sense.
Well, it also, I mean, going back to this guy with 7 days to build something secure, it feels like if people understand the nature of open source, and again, like you said, how much faster you can get things done. And I know this isn't a standard, but I've noticed that even when people are like a big fan of something, you will find that the community magically makes things happen. Like when people who just love a product, there are people in the programming world that will just go in and do it for fun. They'll come be like, hey, found this problem. And it's like, thanks, bro. Like that kind of thing really happens with Trezor. Like we have a community of people just giving us feedback, and they give great feedback sometimes. And just because it's there, the information is there and they can look at it. And it's like, thank you so much, because that's kind of the nature. I don't know. It kind of turns into this philosophical conversation of like human nature and people wanting to help each other and kind of society kind of gelling in that sense.
Yeah, but the thing is that it starts with just one person, right? So for some reason, you know, inside they want to do something, and even in the big company, you have to have just one, you know, person who wants to create something or push the boundaries. Otherwise, you know, it's not going to happen. So that's,
you know, so it exactly goes back to, you know, everybody knows that I'm, you know, very big ambassador of Simon Sinek, but he always says, like, when you communicate clearly what you believe and why you believe that, people will come, right? And that's exactly what happened to us, right? Like people in our community, they are already, you know, advising us however they can to help us succeed as an entire company, you know, and they wouldn't have to, you know, they are spending, you know, multiple hours of their time just to, you know, brainstorm with us, give us honest feedback. And it's a wonderful feeling.
No, I probably don't know the correct term for it in English, but sometimes I feel like maybe they see like, okay, we are so sorry for these guys, you know, how tough work they have. So let's, they're just nice people.
Yeah. But no, it is cool. It's just because like you just don't see that very much in the real world, and it's, I don't know, just I guess a reality for you guys, like in your company, and it is still, to me, it feels like early stage. That's something I think is really exciting. I don't even have that. Wasn't planning on talking about that, but like the potential in the future, like looking forward with the company, like what is kind of the direction you see the company going? Because I know this. First chip, I assume, is the hardest, like putting together your first thing and shipping it. Are there more iterations of this, or like how is that going to work in the future or moving forward? Is that something you can even, how open source are we going to be about this conversation?
As much as we can.
I think, you know, we will see, like there's multiple paths. So if you look at Tropic Square as we're a fabless semiconductor company, which means you design the chip, you basically own the product, put it on the market under your name, but use the industry services to produce the chip. So we don't build a foundry or anything like that. We just, I use the parallel with the chip foundry like a sophisticated 3D printer. When you send the data and then you get the piece of electronics back. So we're designing this data to create the chip. And focus is clearly on the security, this auditability, open sourcing, and pushing the bar in this direction because it's super important for infrastructure. So even the chip is not 100% open because it can't be. There are third-party IP cores still. And it's important to make sure that we can basically produce the end product in reasonable time and cost and so on. So if you say, okay, I want 100% open source, it's possible, but it would be rather an academic project than, something really what you want for the business. And because then you have to use the older technology and it's not that good for security. So there will be a lot of compromises on that sense. But you will end up with the chip and say, okay, yes, this is a fully open source, but that's not the point. So we want to make sure it's secure in the first. And with the security, you are never finished. It's always, constant, improvement and a cat and mouse game. We see all these improvements in the attacks, and then you want to replicate it to the silicon. And the chip, it's, if you find a bug today, you fix it tomorrow, then you will be waiting 6-9 months to get it, through the production. So, but still it's important. So that's a huge difference compared to open source software. When you just fix the bug, you ship the patch and you are quickly around. So in this context, it's super important to be really following all these ethical standards like responsible disclosures and basically keeping this seriously. And we already put it on the edge, like with the openness and auditability, because no other company do that. There are some projects and activities who design open source implementation of the chip, but they don't open the actual implementation of the chip. It's more like a framework or templates or guidance how to do the secure chip. And definitely this is the era where we will continue, we will be progressing. And for our customers, I think it's really important to understand that this is not a one-shot project, because even from them, it's kind of long-term partnership already. Like if you design Tropic chip into your product, you expect to have it on the market for a couple of years. So you expect to have a security updates, you expect to have a new generation devices and even wider portfolio. So that's we are at the beginning of this route, of this path, and then we're looking for investment and transforming the company based on the Tropic 01 experience to really resilient organization which can execute that and pushing this security infrastructure forward.
Also, there's an angle like how to, or for example, I was inspired by this because Jan told me one day is that he sees the company also as open, embedded, secure company. And for me, this sparked it light up my brain. And since then I started to think about it, because it goes back to what Jan said in the beginning, is that the one word definition of it is innovation. And this is exactly what we see in how we struggle to enter the market as well, is that the market of secure elements right now is like 9.5 billion or 12 billion shipped per year. And
that is insane.
That is insane.
That's like more than one per person
yes.
on the earth.
But for example, just for your information, like the entire chip or like integrated circuit market is 300 billion. So that's the secure element market is really just a tiny subset. So it kind of
that's
also makes
year.
sense. That's per year.
Per year, okay.
So it also makes sense that or it's reasonable that the industry doesn't need or doesn't feel the need to innovate, because if it's just 3% of the entire integrated circuit market, everything is built for performance. So, but at the same time, the 9.5 billion, mostly 90% of the market are those chips for ID cards, payment cards, and like mobile phones like Apple and Samsung. And so we are addressing basically the 10% that's left for embedded devices, like the special category.
And when we say embedded, what exactly does that mean?
That's all the electronics you never see and interactive. So it's like, electronics inside the camera, which just shooting us, electronics inside the microscope, microphone.
So it literally means like physically embedded.
It's like a piece of electronics basically. It's typically without the human interface, and it's just doing the stuff.
Okay.
So
like physical hardware devices.
all the electronics inside the cars and this type of stuff.
And so we see that also at some point we need to fuel the market basically with new applications and new devices, because we see that people that are messaging us constantly since the launch are always wanting to build new applications and new devices, secure devices, but they even couldn't get their hands on the secure element. That's like a black box right now because it takes months, and also you get to be approved, and also there's like MOQ of like, let's say 51,000 chips. So if you are a small project and you want to build like a small series, of 200 or 1,000 devices, you cannot. So basically you're stopping the innovation right at the end, at the beginning, before anybody wants to start building something. So this is what we are also seeing, that we want to build like an innovation platform. And ultimately the challenge will be how you will make effective innovation platform rising from that, because if you need to support small projects, it takes basically similar amount of effort to support them. But you have to also pay attention to big projects as well, because ultimately they will finance our functioning. So building this innovation platform is super critical, I guess, for us, because it can be done with being open.
So is the Tropic chip an easier entry point for certain people? Like, is it easier for them to start with that versus another chip? Okay, that's an angle I didn't even realize that. Like, you would consider that like an advantage against.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that there will be every Christmas present will be Tropic chip this year. It's not like still not the population which find it usable. It's quite small, right? So it's the security expert and enthusiast, but even the hobby market, hobby segment might be interesting.
Well, that kind of gave me, I don't even know if this comparison is appropriate, but it gave me like Raspberry Pi vibes, where like people are doing their own projects and stuff like that. Yes. Is that sort of thing, like, will that be possible at some point with Tropic as well? Like, hey, I want a chip, so you can get one?
It's possible
but I would rather see it like being integrated in the platforms like Raspberry Pi. That's already there. When people get a Raspberry Pi, they can play immediately with the Tropic, and they can build secure applications in this ecosystem.
So that's more your goal in like its actual use case.
Yeah, because then you just go with the established infrastructure and basically make sure that their people are enabled and empowered to build more secure electronics. So it will inherently go farther, and then when they get familiar with that, they will use it in their own products and so on. Yeah. That's the idea.
Well, I have one question about the Trezor Safe 7 specifically. I wanted most of this to be like more Tropic chip focused in general, just so we could get more of your information out there. But since, this is the Trezor podcast, let's at least get one. The question that I had that I was just curious about is this is actually mostly a question of ignorance of my own. Do you have to do like a specific chip per electronic device? Like, does the Trezor Safe 7 have its own version of a Tropic 7, or do they all go in like the same way pretty much? Do they just work for anything?
It could be customized for Trezor only requirements. So the chip, Tropic chip is designed that way, that we can do white labeling and firmware customization. But as we are starting, basically this is now the default Tropic configuration. So for now, it's the same chip which goes to Trezor, goes to the other customers, but technically it's possible to make sure that you can only have a certain we call it product part number, and it's done basically by final programming of the certification and identity and so on. So we are ready for that, but it has some, let's say, implications in logistics and so on. So as we are starting, we just trying to find the simple way to establish the initial, let's say, delivery, and then we can customize further. So we can look at that as a some next layers or next steps, how to make the ecosystem on top of Tropics even more secure and more, let's say, vertically controlled for the OEM vendors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, cool. We are running close to our end time here, so I'll jump ahead on a few of the questions just so we can get these in. But one that I was most curious about is how do you think this will change the industry or change the world if we continue to be successful? We're able to get it out there. It goes the direction you're wanting it to. Maybe next 10 to 20 years. What kind of impact do you think this will have on the world?
It will be massive.
Mm-hmm.
It will be massive, and I'm really looking for it. So we are going towards the decentralized systems, autonomous systems and all this stuff. And we really want to have control over what these devices, I explained at the beginning, like when you put the device on the market,
mm-hmm.
you want to make sure as a vendor that it really will be doing what it's supposed to do
mm-hmm.
over the whole life of the device. And that's super important. So which means like not really or limiting the hacks and misuse of the devices
mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. And there's a lot of work to be done on this infrastructure level. And we can, I think, really enable the innovation there, because it's all about building the interoperable layer where we have building blocks which are secure, audited, and they will become reused in another chip designs.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still building your, let's say, your special products on top of it in the closed part, but you know that you're building on the secure infrastructure. And this is, I think, super important.
And at the same time, I see no other way in the future, because like we discussed before, right? So if you close everything and you make a secret out of everything, it can only result in a collapse. And with the threat environment is changing so fast that you simply cannot rely on secrecy, because those are not adaptable security solutions. Once you are open, you are kind of flexible to always be ready to adapt. But it's the kind of the promise, and the ultimate promise of continuous effort, that you will make your best continuously to make the security highest as possible. But the threats are super cheap these days. They're also getting super easy, and like for multiple hundreds of bucks, you can hack, very very secure chips apparently. So this needs to be there needs to be a paradigm shift sparked. I believe that's exactly like what Tropic 01 is, just like a tiny glimpse of better future, but it's a necessary step towards that.
Well, there's the exciting times ahead from the cryptography perspective, like this post-quantum cryptography shift. It's there, it's real, and hopefully we are not 5 years away from that, or we will be saying in 3-5 years we are 5 to 10 years away. It will be good for us, I believe. But at the same time, we really want to be ready if really there will be significant change in the industry and the enforced hardware upgrade across the globe, just because of this post-quantum threat. So that's why we need to have a second product and a product portfolio to be ready for that. So it's really unique setup, and all these geopolitics, everything is kind of showing that we are on the right track.
Yeah,
and we can help there.
Oh, that's cool.
I think the right word is adaptability. I think that's going to be super core, because it's always been like that. The age we live in is getting always more fast and super fast, and so the same will go with the threats. And once the threats will be basically every single second or every single day, you should have some platform that will enable you to adapt. And the black boxes are not that.
And the reason we don't have it today is nobody pay attention to it. It's simple like that. I think it's perfectly doable. We just need to get a critical mass and critical resources, to put on this problem, and I think it will be cool.
Yeah,
to tackle that.
Super cool.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, I'm excited for you guys. It's been cool seeing this technology develop. I got here 2 years ago, so I think 2 years will be in a couple months from now. But
congrats.
Yeah, thanks. I remember coming in like in the beginning, and there was still like so many things that needed to happen. There's like a lot that needed to come together, and it's always such a good feeling when you actually make it. So it's like it's so cool to see you guys succeed.
So it was like what's October 23, 2 years ago. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where we were at that point.
What the process was.
Yes. We had the first silicon tested actually for the security, and we were rushing to finalize the product. What is now in the TS7, this Tropic 1 chip. So it was really a huge design phase in the second half 23, and just for illustration of the timeline, basically we finalized the design and sent the data for chip manufacturing in like summer last year, summer 24. And then we've been waiting till January to get the chips back, and first time power it up. So you can imagine the level of uncertainty and everything, in the way, like if we power it up, will it be okay? Or if even smaller mistake, not related to security or anything like that, might mean that we have to go back to a design and spending, another 6-9 weeks, months to get a chip and not being able to progress with security. So then probably we would not be sitting here today. So luckily nothing like that happened, and we were very, very quickly able to test in the office that we definitely in the good position. We can move forward with these security evaluations, and 10 months later it's on the market. So it's amazing.
I totally forgot about that. Someone told me there was a moment where you had to wait to actually get the chips back because you have to send for it. That's the physical part of the whole thing.
Yes.
And then you have to boot it up and be like, okay, like
does it blink?
Does it
not?
blink?
Yeah. It was a nice day. Yeah. Thursday afternoon in January, I think 16th.
Yes, 16. If you don't mind, Sean, I would ask Jan actually a question.
Yeah, go for it.
What is it like to build an open source security company?
I don't know. I had no time to think about it.
You just got to make it happen.
Yeah, it just happens,
Step by step.
Amazing team, It's like, it is what it is. Like every single individual, and just somehow find a chemistry and work towards this huge goal, Obviously, it's a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty, and the security, you never know. It's very crazy, the thing that you do not find any problem doesn't mean that it's not there or will not be there in some time. And I think it's very, important to understand that this is part of the game. All the opening is scary new stuff for the industry we are operating in. So we have to really balance not to shoot Tropic just because we go too far and so on. So it's if you see the eyes of the partners, you say, hey, we did this and now we just go and put it on the GitHub. Crazy, So it's very unique experience.
Well, cool. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you both for coming out and spending the time.
Thank you very much for having us.
It's always difficult getting any C-level person together, let alone two at the same time, because I know what your schedules are like and how crazy they are. So we appreciate it. We're super excited to have your chip in our device and also to see where it goes elsewhere in the future. So thank you so much. We end each episode. I don't know if you know about this. It's a tradition. It's called the awkward handshake. Because you kind of have to reach around all these. We have 3 people now, so there's one for you.
Thank you very much.
We gotta really reach. Yeah, there we go. And that's how we like to end. I kind of come off the mic and disappear. If people actually watch this long, I think this is where you have the least retention. Okay. So I don't actually know how many people will see that one.
I thought it's gonna be like this, awkward combination when it happens in like 2 friends,
Yeah, people never know.
Fist.
People never know what's gonna come. I like to do snail. When someone does a fist bump, you go like this, and you go snail. That's my favorite thing. But yeah, thank you guys so much. We will see you around the office.
Yeah,
see you around.
Thank you.